Today I will be doing a video on The White Lotus, an HBO Max series. A group of tourists vacation at an expensive resort in Hawaii and all deal with their own dilemmas, along with the employees. A look at the rich versus working class. The show, for the first few episodes, doesn't have much of a plot, just day to day life of these hotel guests and the staff. And it's extremely interesting because it's so well written. The acting is top notch. Everyone here is extremely talented in front of the camera and behind the camera. The show is well crafted. It was annoying having to wait week after week for a new episode. It can definitely be binge watched, and it's only 6 episodes. And because the show is so spaced out, it seems like these people are at the resort for weeks instead of everything taking place in 6 days. The first episode is just character introduction. We have a young couple, a woman from humble beginnings, and her husband coming from a wealthy family. The husband is basically a male Karen throughout the show. He ended up being one of my favorite characters right away because he kinda reminds me of myself. I don't consider myself a Karen, but I don't like it when I feel like I'm being mistreated by customer service, so I definitely felt his frustration. And technically, the husband wasn't wrong to be mad. I thought it was hilarious how he spent all that time trying to get the pineapple suite just for the room to be mediocre in comparison to the cheaper room they were originally in. As for the wife, I never warmed up to her. The wife seems more easygoing, but is kind of a doormat and semi miserable. I almost thought the husband was going to be abusive. Maybe I'm cold hearted, but all her problems could have been solved if she just opened her mouth. Her solutions were simple, yet she had a crying fit in the last episode. Maybe I'm biased because all my problems stem from lack of money, and here we have a woman who finally has financial independence, and she's still a wet blanket, and I can't sympathize with that. Then we have a man who is paranoid about having cancer, who is married and has one college aged daughter who brought her friend along, and he has a son who is addicted to his phone. I was surprised this couple ended up being white supremacists. The father seemed humble and likable when we're first introduced to him, and he thought he was sick, but when everything was okay, he went straight back to being a racist asshole. And I liked how the racism was realistic. The daughter and her friend are absolute bitches who never show any character development. In fact, I ended up hating the Paula character even more after the stuff she pulled that landed someone else in trouble. And the weird part was that we never get closure with this person who ended up in trouble. We hear about them, but that's it. And Paula ends up being Olivia's inferior shadow. I guess her lesson was to not go up against Massa. Then we have a drunken, drugged out woman, or at least that's what I thought she was when we were first introduced to her. She's dealing with a loss and is depressed. Her mom died and she's carrying around her mom's ashes. Her mom was emotionally abusive. At first, she was my least favorite. I thought she was very boring in episode 1. The show went to a halt whenever she showed up. Then, when she makes a proposition to a hotel worker named Belinda about getting her business started, that's when things got interesting. I knew this white woman was going to fuck over the working class black woman. This is why black people need reparations, so we don't have to depend on deranged white folks for money. In the third episode, Belinda was singing Negro spirituals and kissing up to the creepy, grieving white woman in hopes of getting her business funded. Ugh, it was so cringy and so amusing and so sad. The things black people gotta do to make it in life. Let me tell you, if a white person who I barely knew ever offered to give me money or help me out in a substantial way, I would reject it, especially if they seemed crazy. And even if they weren't crazy, I probably wouldn't accept the offer because they might screw me over in a business deal. They'll say some shit like, oh, well, I gave you this money, and if you don't pay it back within a certain amount of time, I'll own the business. And then all of a sudden, it's not black owned anymore. And look where Belinda ended up. She was emotionally drained and cynical by the end. There was a woman in episode 1 who was a hotel employee hiding the fact that she was pregnant on the first day of the job. I thought she was stupid. Why would you hide that you're in labor? And you could have said you felt ill and needed to go to the hospital or something. Or maybe don't get pregnant if you're that desperate for a job. Thankfully, she's not in any of the other episodes. The manager versus Shane was the focal point of the entire series and starts and ends with this. And seeing the confrontation between these two got more and more amusing with each episode. I really did enjoy this show and I highly recommend it, and I give it a 9 out of 10.